NASCAR? Do you like a Tribe Called Quest? Well, you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like manwich and nachos? Well, then you'd love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like guns? Do you like butter? Well, you're gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Yo, what's good, son? You like pit bulls, say? You like solving Sudoku puzzles? Then you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Hey, buddy, if your car making a sound like this, you might want to get you some power steering fluid and check out the Urban Conservative podcast.
Are you repulsed by the idea of drag queen story time at your local library, but enjoy Carol Baskin TikTok memes? Then you would enjoy the Urban Conservative.
Do you want to slap your boss and then go home and make yourself some golden brown pancakes covered in butter and freshly made warm boysenberry syrup? Then you'll love the Urban Conservative.
If you're a little over Cardi B and you're repulsed by the thought of hog maw, check out the Urban Conservative. Are you ready? If you think the earth is flat and always on that weird side of YouTube, check out the Urban Conservative. They'll set you straight.
If you're in a chasing dopey and you love South Fish and Festival, check out the Urban Conservative.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. It is a Sunday afternoon. It is time for the Sunday Soup here on the Urban Conservative. The Sunday Soup is where we take stories on unique perspectives and we break them down, bring them to you. This week, we're going to be talking about black men and the Republican Party. By all measures, it appears that black voters in the United States are going to be supporting Donald Trump and Republicans across the board. We're going to take a little look at that. If you haven't done so already, I need you to go to tuconservative.com, grab yourself one of those Hamilton plans. That'll help us continue to do what we do, which is to share conservative values and principles and the benefits of conservative policies to urban communities across this great nation of ours. Again, the website to support what we do here is tuconservative.com. As well, while you're at it, I am indeed running for U.S. House District 12 here in the great city of Charlotte. I need you to visit aliforcongress.com, ALIFOR Congress.com. Let's take on Alma Adams and Joe Biden this year. We can work to make America better. We can do that together, ladies and gentlemen. I just got to give a real big shout out to Kevin McCain, Timothy McCain, Craig Scott, Paul Jacob, the whole crew at Americans for Citizens Only Voting. We had a great Carolina Leadership Summit go down yesterday in Greensboro. There's some video and some photos and all that good stuff floating around. But I got to give a big shout out to the whole team over at the Carolina Leadership Summit. Great job. Representative Fontenot, Mark Robinson dropped into the building. And here's the interesting thing about this, folks, is, and before we talk a little bit more about the general relationship between black men and the GOP, one of the interesting things that I've heard said, and I'm sure y'all have heard pundits kind of say this thing, is that Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor for the state of North Carolina, does not have the support of black voters. This is an interesting dynamic where the media, the left, is going to say they're going to put their Democrat operatives out there. They're going to put what I call the bootlicking Negro Democrat representative people out there, the ones that are fetching it for master. They're going to put them out there to say that Mark Robinson isn't really black. Mark Robinson doesn't represent or doesn't have any support from the black community. You know, Mark Robinson just doesn't have the support from black voters. And this is what the media is going to say. I have something to show you that will give you quite the contrary view on that. And that is Mark Robinson showed up to the North Carolina New Leadership Summit yesterday. And that is a room of predominantly, there you go, row after row of black people who happen to be very happy to see the lieutenant governor, who appear by all means and measures to be folks that support the lieutenant governor. Here you have Mark Robinson with a group of people that the left, the media says he does not have their support. Well, to the contrary of that, ladies and gentlemen, there you have Mark Robinson greeted by a room full of black North Carolina voters who are just thrilled to have him there. Okay. Now, this idea that Mark does not have the support of black voters should be put to bed. Okay. There you have a black man clearly with a Mark Robinson hat on. So what you have here is a situation where the mainstream media, the News and Observer, and these other, left-leaning, what I'll just call hack jobs of journalism, you have these people who, on one breath, want to act like people like Mark Robinson don't represent the issue, the values that most North Carolinians and most Americans hold. Meanwhile, they do. And then they put their payroll Democrat preachers up to say that Mark he doesn't speak for the black community. Now, the interesting thing about that is that these preachers pretend that they do. These media outlets pretend that they speak for black Americans. Now, the interesting thing about this is you have to kind of go outside of U.S. media to really take a look at what's going on. And this story comes to us from Al Jazeera, international news outlet. To call them left-leaning, right-leaning, wouldn't really do the job. But Al Jazeera even has this report. We're going to take a look at this. The latest poll shows 17% of black voters would vote for former president today, more than twice the number in 2016. So if you're listening and you're not watching, we're going to cover this story. It's written by Dwayne Oxford. This came out March 18th, 2024. He was famously called the former white supremacist in chief by Democrat Congresswoman Cori Bush in 2021. Now, should anybody take what Cori Bush has to say seriously? Probably not. And she's got her own problems this cycle. But back in 2018, Hillary Clinton called former U.S. President Donald Trump ignorant and racist after he reportedly made highly derogatory comments about Haiti and African countries. And I think they're referring to the blip hole comment that he made. I don't see too many people riding over to Haiti to go on vacation. I don't see a lot of people talking about which African country they're going to on vacation. So we never mind that. We're not even going to keep going into that. Even Nikki Haley, who dropped out of the presidential race, called comments Trump made about African Americans disgusting. Now, this whole idea, because I was in the room, that somehow Trump's comments at the BCF dinner were racist, were offensive to black people. I was in a room full of black people and nobody seemed to be bothered by the comments. But the fact of the matter is, and I said this yesterday at the Greensboro Leadership Summit, the left wants black people to be enraged about Donald Trump. They want to believe that Representative Hunt, Representative Owens, Senator Tim Scott, Representative Byron Donalds, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, by virtue of them being Republican, do not or have not or somehow are less black, have not had the black American experience, air finger quote on that. But that's what they would have us to believe. This is what the media, the mainstream media, will tell you. Things like these black men are disconnected from the black struggle. I guess the black struggle means you're afraid of the police every day. You gotta, it's hard being a black man in America. That whole contrived mess. Matter of fact, let's take a listen. This is why they have such a problem with people like Representative Wesley Hunt. Listen to Wesley Hunt talk about voter ID. Take a listen to this.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham, for having me here today to speak about voting rights in America, the country that I love dearly. More importantly, I'm here to talk about the left's soft bigotry of low expectations. Because it's the Democrat Party, not the Republican Party, that thinks so little of Black Americans and people of color that
Whoa, he even just started out dropping bombs.
they make the case that being Black in America means we can't obtain a government ID to vote. And that's not only a ridiculous assertion, it's demeaning and it's insulting. When it comes down to it, many of my colleagues on the left like to pretend that we're still living in the 1950s. Well, we're not. I've got some good news for you. It's 2024, and I know what year it is because I've been Black for just over 40 years. And I'm also the son of a retired lieutenant colonel who grew up in the segregated South. You see, my parents grew up in a Jim Crow South in the 50s and 60s in New Orleans, Louisiana. Their next generation, my parents had 3 kids. My sister, brother, and I all went to West Point, all 3 of us. We all served our country in combat. And I sit before you today as a sitting United States congressman in a district in a suburb of Houston, Texas. That's a white majority district. That
How do you explain that, left? How do you explain somebody like him who is clearly Black parents, predominantly white district? How do you explain that if America is as racist today or as jacked up along racial lines as it was in, say, 1940?
President Trump would have won by 25 points, and I won by almost 30 points. And that doesn't happen unless we've made some incredible progress in this great nation.
That's right.
Now, my colleagues on the left like to say that common sense voting laws, including requiring a government-issued ID, are racist, discriminatory, and burdensome. Do you know what my father had back in the 40s and 50s before it was even cool? A government-issued ID.
Come on.
And continuing in his footsteps, I too have multiple government-issued IDs. And while that might be shocking to many people in this country, people may ask, how's that happen? It's very simple. It's personal responsibility for all Americans in this country, regardless of what you look like. Sitting with me today is my global entry card, my military ID card, my Texas driver's license, my Texas license to carry, because that's how we roll in Texas, my congressional card, and of course, the good old-fashioned American passport. What sorcery is this? What am I, the Black Houdini? How was I able to pull off the impossible and attain not 1, not 2, not 3, but 6 government-issued IDs?
That is the problem the left has with Black men in the Republican Party. This right there, what he just said, the debunking of the idea that Black men are unable to get ID, Black men are unable to achieve the American dream, Black men are somehow, like he said, the soft bigotry of low expectations. That is why you're seeing Black people, Black men specifically, go towards the GOP. Now, in 2016, Trump received 8% of the Black vote, according to exit polls, the highest level of support by Black voters for any Republican since Bush in 2000. By 2020, Trump had support among Black voters had surged to 12%. And while current opinion polls vary, a recent survey from Gen Forward shows that if elections were held today, 17% of Black voters would vote for Donald Trump, while 20% said they would vote for someone other than Trump or Biden, which is alarming for the Democrats. The Black voting bloc is unique. It's the only group of voters that consistently identify with Democrats, reaching 77% of Black voters in favor of Democrats in 2020. By comparison, 42% of white voters and 63% of Latino voters identified as Democrats. Now, there's a little monolithic thinking there on the Democrat Party. And what we found out is that the Democrats are confusing a lot of Hispanic voters, especially people that don't come from the country originally, because they're confusing democracy with Democrat. And we've got to do a better job on that. But here's where the point that I'm trying to make on this whole thing is when you have people like Representative Hunt, Representative Burgess Owens, Senator Tim Scott, Representative Byron Donalds, and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, it flies against the conventional wisdom that Black men, for some reason, will not go towards the Republican Party. Now, the numbers could spell trouble for Democrats in November's presidential election, especially in swing states. Okay. When you look at the fact that you have people like this out here, okay, this man ain't been paid. I've been to the Trump rallies. You don't get paid for that. And that's one of the things they often do, the people on the left, especially if you have a different thought process, you're thinking about things differently. You don't want to, ideally, you don't want to basically give people credit for their own ability to think and to comprehend. For some reason, it's always attack on the character of the person who sees things differently. But when you ask the average black father, when you ask the average black man, do they want their daughters getting beat up on by boys who think they're girls or young men who think they're young women in sports? The answer is going to be no. When you talk to black parents, black fathers, and black men, by and large, they're not in favor of this radical transgender ideology being pushed in our schools. You ask the average black man what is one of the biggest concerns they have, and that is ensuring the safety of their community. This idea that the left, portrays, and I can put the actual numbers up, the idea is that the majority of black people are somehow in poverty. And this is, this narrative that they push, it's so hard to be a black man in America. It's so hard. And you got to struggle if you was a black man in America. Well, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Hold on. I'm going to actually go ahead. And I'm going to see if I can find the 2024 numbers here. This is where we are. So 2022, that KFF has it at 2022. And I'll use these numbers. These will be fine. So here's what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen. When they talk about, the people on the left talk about how bad black people got it. Let's just look at this. This is the poverty rate. Okay. Poverty rate by race and ethnicity. These are the 2022 numbers. Okay. So if we were to just look at black people alone in Alabama, 26%. So that means damn near almost 70% of black people are doing just fine. There ain't no black people in Alaska, so they're yet not applicable. 14%, 29%, 18%. I'm looking for 4. Now here you go. Iowa's at 40%, 37. Maine's at 31. But I don't see a 50% poverty rate for black people anywhere. Let's look at North Carolina, 19%. So that means 80% of black folks are doing better or not in poverty. So this idea that the left continues to put out there that somehow, some way, all black men, all black people are struggling. It's part of the reason why black voters, black men in particular, are getting turned off, because the reality is this soft expectation, this soft bigotry of low expectations. They take what applies to 30%, 40% of the population and try to make that apply to the other 60 or 70% of the population, when that is not the fact of the matter. That is not what applies. So when we look at this whole story, when we go back and we look at this story, to understand the history of the black vote in the GOP, we got to go back and look at some early 20th century voting patterns before the 1930s. Now, the Republicans and the Democrats received roughly equal support from both black and white voters. Okay. And this is going back to about 1932, the election of Roosevelt triggered a shift of black voters to the Democrat Party. According to data from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, Roosevelt gained 71% of the black vote for his presidency in 1936. During the Great Depression, African Americans were disproportionately impacted by unemployment. Roosevelt's New Deal, a set of economic recovery programs, attempted to correct these issues, and Roosevelt would later say, among American citizens, there should be no forgotten men and no forgotten races. Okay. Democrats continued peeling away voters from the GOP in the 40s when Harry S. Truman signed an executive order in 1948 ordering the desegregation of the U.S. Armed Forces. Okay. Now, let's be real. This pissed off a cohort of the Democratic Party known as the Dixiecrats. However, they were opposed to civil rights legislation and wanted to keep segregation in force in the southern states, not Republicans. Dixiecrats, Democrats. And they, in 1948, held a separate convention in Birmingham, Alabama. And when they nominated South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond, staunch segregationists, for president on what they termed as states' rights ticket, which called for the right to keep segregation, Thurmond won more than 1.1 million popular votes in the 1948 presidential election. This amounted to only 2.4% of the votes cast, and he was ultimately defeated by Truman, who won 303 electoral votes against Thurmond's 39. Thomas Dewey, the Republican candidate, took 189. The Democrats would further capture the black vote in 64 with the passage of the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act of 65 under Lyndon Johnson. After signing that law, Johnson foresaw backlash from the white Southern voter bloc when he famously said, "We've lost the South for a generation." Further to divide between the black and white voting blocs, Nixon, a Republican, deployed what was known at that time as the Southern Strategy during his bid for 68 and 72. The strategy was designed to appeal to white voters in the South who were disenchanted with the Democrat Party stance on civil rights. So last year, Gallup poll showed that the proportion of black adults in the U.S. who consider themselves as Democrat had decreased from 77% in 2020 to 66%. Black voters operate a bit more independently from previous generations, especially the young folks. In the 22 midterms, Biden largely retained the black vote. However, there was a considerable shift among black voters towards the GOP from 8% in the midterms 4 years previously to 14%. Historically, the Democrats' legacy with civil rights is what kept it popular. However, young black men do not have the same civil rights legacy attachment. And we don't, because we live in a country that is so free that you cannot say that the America of 2024 is the America of 1950 or 1940 or 1930. Not with these men that you see on the screen, not with Representative Hunt, Representative Owens, Senator Scott, Mark Robinson, first black lieutenant governor in North Carolina history, overwhelmingly elected, overwhelmingly. So if this was about race and this was about the Republican Party not being accepting to black men, you would have to account for the gentleman you see on the screen. And the only argument that the left is going to make is that somehow these black men are not thinking for themselves. They do not have the capacity in and of themselves to think for themselves. They're white man bootlickers, or what they're going to say. They're, doing the bidding of the white man. And then I see, unfortunately, I can go look at some of the comments, right? I can go look, if I were to look at and pull up some of the comments in here, and I'm just going to do this, right? I'm just going to go ahead and let me see if it'll let me pull up the comments on this. Let's see, y'all. All right. Here you go. All right, here you go. I'm just going to share this tab instead, and I'm going to show y'all this, because this is the reality of what we're dealing with here. Why would any black person, and this is clearly not a black person, vote for this clown? What is wrong with y'all? He's not for you by some of the statements just because he's the same. Wait a minute. That's what the Democrats want you to do. Okay? Then somebody says, I see when Robinson passed by the black women in the audience, he didn't shake their hands. What an idiot. So here's what I could do is I could reply to this and show them where he hugged a black woman at the end when he got up there. So but why even respond to that? See what I'm saying, folks? The ignorance, the belligerence that's out there, but they will have you to believe black people don't support Mark Robinson. I beg to differ. You gonna tell me them people in there aren't black? They're all bootlicking, sucking up to the white man. They're all don't know their own struggle. They're not connected with their people. All of the foolishness that they tend to try to say happens. But what it is, and I think that this is where we're gonna see. We're going to see this shift if Republicans, right? If Republicans and the Trump campaign and the folks that are in charge we have an opportunity, I think, this cycle to reach out and to build on that basically the traction that we've gained among black voters by sharing the fact that these black men that you see on the screen, they represent the best of America. They represent the fact that they come from people who were enslaved in this country, who went through Jim Crow, who went through this whole period, an ugly, just disgusting period of American history, but were able to succeed in spite of that. That is the catch. Black men we are 2A friendly. We want safe and secure neighborhoods. We want the best education for our children. And this idea that the left says that these men on the screen do not represent black values, whatever that's supposed to mean, do not represent or are disconnected from the struggle of their people. No, these are the people that survived through those struggles, that are the beneficiaries of what Clarence Henderson and so many people did in the civil rights movement and the abolitionist movement. What better place for these men to be in than the Republican Party? Now, the argument always gets made that the Republican Party, and I said this on a radio interview, the Republican Party of today is not the Republican Party of Lincoln and Douglas. And I would beg to differ because the value set hasn't changed. The idea of self-accountability, the idea of doing for self, the idea of God, family, country, the idea that people should be free to pursue whatever makes them happy as long as it's legal and they're abiding by the law has not changed. The value set of what the Republican Party was founded on freedom, hasn't changed. Now, we're going to make the argument, some folks will make the argument that there is we would be remiss if we didn't say that there is some element of folks in the GOP that aren't necessarily black folk friendly. They're there. But you got bad people in no matter what group it is. You got bad police officers. You got bad firefighters. You got bad teachers. You got bad Democrats. So the reality of it is, folks, the Republican Party, Donald Trump, Mark Robinson, we do need to make sure that we as black men, black women are supporting them. We have to make sure that we're pushing back against this narrative that there's no real place for black men in the GOP. We have to push back against that narrative. Okay. That is the biggest thing we need to do is push back on that narrative. We need to make sure, okay? We need to make sure that we continue to share truth like this right here. This is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. That's the truth. Look at unemployment for black folks under the Trump presidency. Look at that spike in unemployment rate. Okay? Unemployment was low for African American during his presidency. Okay. And if we're going to be fair, right? If we're going to be fair, the trajectory did start during the Obama presidency. Sure. We can be fair on that, but it was Trump policies that continued that. I can only imagine where we would have been without COVID. But folks, that's the reality of it. Is we have to be pushing back against this narrative. We have to be present in our communities. We have to be willing to have tough political discussions as black men and women, as American citizens in general. We have to do a better job of ensuring that people know what the party stands for, the Republican Party stands for. We have to be willing to stand in the gap for people like Representative Hunt, for people like Tim Scott, for people like Byron Donalds, and here in North Carolina, for folks like our Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. Yo, the man does not get positive press. We need to do everything we can to support him. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Sunday S.O.U.P here on the Urban Conservative. Black men in the GOP, get in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Are you seeing your black friends and family members support more Republican candidates? Are they not supporting Republican candidates? Get in the comment section. Let us know what you think. For my twin brother, Raheem, Architect Soto, I am Abdul Ali. Make sure you join us tomorrow night. You are not going to want to miss what we've got going on tomorrow night. We will have a live episode of the Urban Conservative tomorrow night. We are going to be joined by, and I'll get it up here on the screen, pause. Here you go. We are going to be joined by Dave Boliek, who is running for North Carolina State Auditor. That is going to be tomorrow, the 29th, 8 p.m., right here on the Urban Conservative. Y'all have a positive, relaxing Sunday. We'll see y'all live and direct for Top of the Morning, and again for the Urban Conservative podcast tomorrow night. Y'all have a great one. Peace and love. Have brought you chaos at our border, failed foreign policy, sky-high prices, and out-of-control crime. It's time for new ideas and new leadership. Vote Abdul Ali for U.S. House District 12, and let's make America better. Paid for by Ali for Congress. Country illegally cast a ballot. It takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and